Well, Sindhu, thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So my name is Sindhu Belki. I am Indian by origin, but I was born and raised in Qatar, and I'm currently in the US pursuing aerospace engineering and mechanics at the University of Alabama. And yeah, I'm the project manager of my rocketry team here at UA, and we compete in the NASA student launch competition, and we build and fly rockets.
Just to give us an idea, how high do your rockets go?
So because we're a collegiate rocketry team, we're not building the super big ones that like NASA builds, and our rockets fly up to 5,000 feet.
Okay, and what's the most interesting payload y'all put on your rockets?
That is a great question. So last year, I was also the project manager of the team, and we had a mission to be able to locate the rocket had to be able to locate itself without a GPS. So we built a camera system that would take pictures of the rocket at apogee and then send it back to the ground station. And we had an image recognition software that took these images and processed them and was able to locate, like kind of pinpoint the location of the rocket and predict where it would land. So I think that was by far the coolest.
That is amazing. And all that was being processed on the rocket itself?
Yeah, so we had like part of it was on board to be able to just like process the images, and part of it was also like on the ground station to be able, so we had a transmitter and we would just kind of like transmit that data from the rocket to the ground station. So yeah, there was like part one and part two, and yeah, we had several iterations of that like in our test flights before the actual launch. And yeah, it was just incredible watching all the engineers from different facets of our school just come together and work on this. It was incredible.
That is amazing. And in terms of recovery of the rocket, y'all use parachutes?
Yes, we do. So we have like two ones. There's a drogue parachute that deploys at apogee, and it kind of just like breaks the flight of the rocket immediately. And then around 5 feet above ground level, we have the main parachute open up, which is much bigger, and it slows it down dramatically. So it's not like hitting the ground with a high impact velocity.
Have y'all thought about using that second parachute to actually steer the rocket back to different things? And it's like what Niels Bohr said: the best way to predict the future is to create it. So
Well, as much as we would love to, I think that technically it would take a few more like extra steps to do that. And I'm not sure if that is specified in NASA's handbook. So we follow a handbook that NASA's published that is like a guideline. It's a set of guidelines that we have to follow. So I am not sure if that is there, but I would definitely put it down for something that our team can explore in the future.
well, do thinking back through your history, living in Qatar, coming over here and studying rocketry, at what point at I mean, just thinking back to like the very, very beginning, um, when did you become interested in space and rockets and that type of thing?
That is a great question. So I always knew, even as just a kid, that I was very interested in space. As a kid, I would like climb to the like ledge of my window and just kind of sit there at bedtime and like watch like the moon and point at the stars. And back in the early 2000s, we had that little dial-up connection for our computers. And so, when my parents weren't looking, I would like go like plug that in our big like computer and like look it up on Google and try to like understand like what kind of constellations are there and what we can see. And obviously in that hemisphere of the world, you have a difference. There are some constellations that you can't see here that you only see there. And so it was incredible just like trying to learn that as like a 4-year-old. And I remember my parents would walk into my bedroom sometimes and like, hey, you should be sleeping, like why are you still awake, kind of thing. But after a while they kind of just realized, they're like, yeah, she really likes this. So they would like buy books that were just like very focused on like the history of space, the Apollo missions, and just like understanding like living in space, space habitats, planets, things like that. And to this day, I still have those books because they were like the building blocks of like the foundation of my imagination and understanding of space. And from there, I just kind of already set that goal. That I wanted to be like working in this industry. I wanted to do something. But Qatar, as you know, is a fairly small country. We don't really have a space program. We've only launched 2 satellites so far. And it is just, we don't really have a space program in terms of, we don't have universities that offer a degree in aerospace. We don't have, like, we have a small Qatar space agency, but it's very kind of like, elite, not really, it's very hard to get into. And so, and I'm an immigrant, so I'm a permanent resident there, but I am not a citizen. And so it is even more hard for me to get there. Plus being a woman just has, other repercussions in terms of being able to, for me to achieve my goals. So time and again, I would hear it from my teachers and my friends, and even sometimes from like family, that they would say like, hey, this is, being an aerospace engineer, not really for girls. You should kind of just drop that dream and go for something realistic. And I almost did. I almost let that get to me. But my parents were always very supportive, and they were like, you know what, if this is what you want to do, you should do that. And so, yeah, it was as I came to, I think, maybe middle school or high school, and, we delved into deeper topics in science. I realized that I wanted to be an engineer as well. So I combined my love for engineering and science to pursue aerospace engineering. And yeah, I applied for a couple opportunities, Qatar and India, and actually just 2 universities in the US. And it was kind of just like a shot in the dark. I didn't really know what that would materialize into. But yeah, I ended up getting a pretty good scholarship to attend the University of Alabama. And yeah, I just decided that I would leave like, everything and everyone I've ever known and come here like at 18 and yeah, give a shot at pursuing my dreams. And it has been nothing short of incredible. It's definitely been a struggle, just moving from halfway across the world. It's a different country, a different culture, different climate. And, I was always worried about how I'd fit in, but I'm just glad that, the space industry is taking several steps to celebrate diversity and equity and inclusion and make people like me feel included. And so, yeah, that is just the timeline of how things progress. And I'm very glad to be existing in this day and age where we're going back to the moon and it's more diverse and more inclusive than ever.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree with you. And as you were talking, it reminded me that there is a little overlap between your story and some of my family story as well. My wife is Indian, and her brother left India and went to the University of Alabama all by himself too. So it's kind of,
Wow, that is incredible.
that was back in like the 1980s, which was like we couldn't even do these video calls back then. So.
Oh yeah. And I can only imagine how hard it must have been for him to be able to call back, talk to family, visit them once in how many years. It's just, yeah. Wow.
Um, you talk about some challenges about trying to pursue these interests. People trying to, say that this is like a career that's right for your gender, or maybe it's not the right thing for people to do at all. I mean, what gives you sort of that internal strength to just keep going on?
This is the question that I have asked myself several times. And I believe that fundamentally my purpose that I want to achieve is to make space more accessible for everybody. So making it more accessible to me means people who look like me, who are still kids, who are still teenagers, who I was at some point in my life, need role models to emulate. And I remember being a kid and being a teenager and not really having a lot of role models to look up to. And I would question my dream even more because, I would not see anybody who looked like me up there. And so it was like, if nobody has made it so far, like very few have, what are the chances of me succeeding? Like, why am I even doing this when the chances of me failing are huge? And the pathways that I can take to achieve the goals that I've set are so very few. And that was the question that I would ask myself multiple times for several years. And I don't want that question to be in the minds of the people that come after me. I don't want them to question their dreams. It shouldn't be a question of if, it should be a question of how. How can I achieve this? And so I want to be able to like set up a non-for-profit organization in Qatar that like helps establish these kind of pathways that people can take to be able to realize, okay, I have this dream and this is what I can do to achieve it, kind of thing. And so to me, that's what I have in my heart that keeps me going, even on the toughest days. It's like, I am doing something much more bigger than me. I'm doing something that, I'm setting invisible bricks and laying the foundation of something that I will only actually be able to see years later. And it's already happening. Change is already happening. I can see family and friends of mine, just kind of when I go back home, after I was able to go back to India after 3 years because of COVID. And when I went, there were people asking me like, hey, like, my kid is interested in space and I kind of want to like know what did you do? How did you get where you are? How did you get the scholarship? How did you, start this thing at, rocketry club? How did you become project manager? And they're asking all these how questions. And it's no longer a question of like, will you be able to make it? It is, you are already there and you're getting further. How can my kid do this? How can my sister or my brother or my friend take like, for me, it was carving the path itself. And now they're asking me how I can follow, like, how can I follow you in the same path? And I think that to me is just, it's amazing that like, that is everything that I've ever wanted to do. And yeah, even on the toughest days, that's what keeps me going.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, there's sort of two aspects to it. How do you get more people to do this? One is, making the path easier, which, you kind of touched on. But the other thing is, how do you make people more determined so that regardless of how difficult the path is, they are determined to succeed, whatever it takes, they make it happen. And in sort of your journey, have you come across some, like, how do you inspire that in people? So it's like, forget what people are telling me, forget what society is telling me, forget all these obstacles, I'm going to do it, and it may be difficult, I may not succeed the first time, but, I want to keep banging on that door until I open it. Seeing people go through the door obviously is very inspirational. You're like, yes, it does open. So that's good. But I just wonder if you had any like role models or stories or inspirational quotes or, things that kind of, inspire people on the determination side.
Well, coming to the second part of your question, which was just about role models. So growing up, there was just a handful of people who were like people of color, of like Indian origin, who have ever been to space. And I can think of just maybe 4 or 5 names that are like on that list. And so, yeah, growing up, I know myself, it was multiple like incidents and like microaggressions when people are questioning your dream itself. Because I know a lot of people here that I go to the aerospace program with who grew up like launching model rockets in their backyard. And nobody questioned their dream. It was just like, yeah, I'm interested in aerospace engineer. Okay, go be an aerospace engineer. But for me, it was like, I'm interested in being an aerospace engineer. Why? like it was almost like I was going against every stereotype I was raised with. Because from where I come from, girls are not aerospace engineers. Girls don't do that. And so it was like challenging that status quo, challenging that stereotype, and breaking that stereotype. And so I had to go from just challenging it to actually breaking it. And the best way that I found to motivate myself was just, I made a little like vision board. I kind of like, to my laptop, I set backgrounds of just like space, people that inspire me. I have a quote that I live by, Paraspera ad astra. And to me, that quote just, that hits home for me, because when I keep reminding myself of what my goal is and what steps I'm taking to do it, I'm turning inwards. I am not looking for external validation from all these sources that are not going to give me that. And so the best way to do it, it really is to just kind of outline what your goals are and look for help in the right places. Because when I came here, there were several organizations like my Rocketry Club, Society for Women Engineers, AIAA. There's a bunch of organizations and even like individuals or who are here to just help you make your dream bigger and better and achieve it. And to me, those are the kind of resources that need to be amplified. So so you're no longer listening to all the naysayers and all the people that are trying to tear you down. You have all these resources amplified and ready for you to use that can deter any of the negative comments and put them aside. And for any person who aspires to achieve their dream, especially in space, I believe that the sooner they get in touch with these kind of resources and these individuals, they have a better chance of being able to achieve what they want to. And there's always that thought in the back of my mind, had we not had all these naysayers and negative comments, there might be several people out there, thousands of people out there with like broken dreams they wanted to achieve, but they never could. And I think that's what also gives me, like, serves as motivation for me, is to make sure that we're not losing all this amazing talent and brain power and potential that is, that spans across several generations and several like societies all over the world. And to me, that's inspiration. It's like, I want to encourage people to stay with that dream, even when it's hard, and focus on like turn back inwards and focus on what you really want to do. And to me, the more you focus inwards, the more focused you are on your goals, and you have a more clear outline of what it is, the better chance you have at actually achieving it. And not listening to all the people that don't believe or don't see your dream the way you do.
I think that's beautiful, wonderful, well said.
Thank you.
Well, I had a few questions about the moon I wanted to ask you about. I guess first off, you of course knew that NASA was going to the moon, I imagine.
Yes.
Do you remember when you found out?
I think I found out, well, there wasn't a lot of discussion when I was back in Qatar. So really, I found out when I came here to the US in 2021. I believe it was like spring, around January. So about 2 years ago was when I first found out what the mission actually meant.
Well, that is interesting. I started this project in 2019 whenever NASA's like really started beating the drum of getting people back on the moon in 2024. In fact, the first woman on the moon in 2024. And I've been interviewing people at like coffee shops, at the mall, at the park, and the vast majority of them have no idea that we're going back to the moon. Does this surprise you?
No, it does not. No, frankly, no. It's sad, but that's true.
Do you think if more people knew, that would get more people inspired, or?
Yes, Certainly, I do believe that. I think it just, well, there's a combination of factors that led to the delay of the program and the reason why we started so late when, the target was a couple of years ago. But yeah, fundamentally, I believe that there's just a lot of misinformation present in, the public's eyes about how the space industry is heading, where it is heading. And so even when there's incredible work like the Artemis mission and other future missions being done, people don't see the value of that. And so, first off, it's like spreading the word, but also saying the right things, like not telling people, like being able to outline why we're going back to the moon. Like, I think that why question is one of the biggest ones that a lot of people don't quite see what NASA's why is, or why the space industry's why is. And they don't really see, just the perspective with which we are all going, like why we think this is amazing. And so a vast majority of the public either just is not informed about it and could not care less about it, or they just see it in a different way and perceive it mostly negatively. So, yeah.
I do have a good answer to that why question.
Yes, please.
Oh, no, I was wondering if you had an answer to it.
Well, I think to me, the future of where we're heading is going to be to the moon and to Mars and beyond. And my understanding is because as humans, we're fundamentally built to ask these why questions and be curious and explore. This is the space industry's way of exploration, and just how we have marine biologists and geologists exploring the depths of the ocean. This is our exploration. This is how we understand the universe and in turn ourselves better. And time and again we see these breakthroughs in the space industry about how for example, the James Webb Space Telescope gave us a better understanding of like galaxies and nebulae that were far away, that we've never seen in such clear pictures before. And being able to study that tells us a lot about the composition of our galaxy, our solar system, and in turn ourselves. So it is a better understanding of just humanity and the ways we do it. To me is the best way, because that way it's like we're not just like in future missions it felt very exclusive. It was just government entities like NASA and ESA doing all these missions. But now with the inclusion of people of color in this mission, women in this mission, and just having such a diverse and representative front for this mission means so much to so many people, because that way it's like we're no longer leaving people behind. It is all of humanity being represented for the future of humanity. And so it's a more collaborative effort, more than anything I've ever seen before or heard of before. And being able to like go back to the moon and use this as a gateway to Mars is just like that idea, that understanding of being able to not just explore a celestial body, but being able to actually live there, exist there, and create our mark as humanity on a whole another planet or celestial body is just incredible. It shows how much progress we've made so far and how much more we can do, and that potential exciting. So for me, that is the reason why we're going back.
I've been thinking a lot about human spaceflight and how to explain it to people who have doubts. And whenever I think about robotics versus humans, I can't think of any reason to send humans other than to send humans. And I know that sounds kind of like circular, but I feel like that if your mission is to create off-world settlement, like a settlement on Mars, then like the entire human spaceflight program makes sense. But if your mission is not to do that, then I have a lot of questions in my own mind. I was wondering what your take is on sort of that viewpoint.
Well, I think I would have to agree with you on that for sure. If we want to sustain human civilization, especially like on such, planets that don't have the same kind of composition and structure the way Earth does, um, it's really, yeah, it's all about understanding how we live there. And the best way to do that is actually put people there. And sure, it may sound daunting and scary, but it's not like, that we're doing this just like as a shot in the dark kind of thing, because we have such amazing scientists and engineers that have put the brain power, like the best of all minds on earth together, and come up with this program to execute that. And as we saw with just the first, like Artemis 1, and how the mission was very successful, and we recovered Orion perfectly. To me, that means that now we have also had proof of flight, proof of mission. We are able to show people that this is not just something that we theorized in our minds. This is actually happening. Like we have shown, from step one to the last step, that all of this is executed perfectly. And yeah, obviously I don't think questioning it is wrong. But I think being part of the space industry is being able to tailor the answer depending on who's asking that question. Because a lot of people, I think this includes you and me, when it comes to looking at things a certain way, we have to be able to relate to it in order to be able to get a better understanding of it. So that is my understanding every time I approach somebody to have a conversation about this. It is the more relatable it feels, the better you understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so, for example, a farmer in the middle of like Ohio will have just like, what's in it for him kind of thing. And, you have to people, it's like different people across the world, it would mean different things. But ultimately, if you look at it from a humanities perspective, no matter how diverse we are or what backgrounds we come from, going to the moon and going to Mars would have to translate to just like not looking at it from just an individual's perspective. We have to look at it from a macro perspective, from just like looking at us as humanity itself, and being able to come together to execute a mission like this is incredible. So showing people their uniqueness in and their participation in this mission, but also telling them that they belong to a larger entity and how that affects their understanding of this, to me, is like there's two parts to it, but it would help to be able to outline both of that every time we talk to people. And I think that's how I've been trying to have conversations with people, and it's worked out pretty well so far. But yeah, that's my take on it.
I was just thinking about what does the farmer in Ohio get out of the space program? And I was thinking, if it was like, if NASA's like official mission in terms of human spaceflight was to create a settlement on Mars and other places and push forward, then what that farmer in Ohio could potentially get out of it is his children or grandchildren could be the first people, a part of that first settlement, and his great grandchildren might be the first people that are going to another star system, and spreading humanity and life and everything throughout the galaxy. Just
Yes, that is, yeah, I agree. That is, I think when we look at it from the macro perspective, it is also not just think about us, but our future, like people that will come after us. I think, yeah, that is, again, a beautiful perspective to keep in mind every time we talk about this mission.
so you mentioned you have something that helps keep you centered and focused and motivated, a vision board. I feel like society needs a vision board and doesn't have one.
I agree.
How do we create that? How do we create like that vision board for society that everybody can like look at and go, it's an awesome future and there's a place in it for me?
Well, I think, there's a lot of entities that play into this. So just being able to look at NASA's outreach programs and what they've done to, make sure people understand the Artemis mission is amazing. They have several outreach programs. In fact, the competition that I go to, the NASA student launch, is part of that Artemis like outreach initiative. And so, like just from NASA's perspective, I believe they're already doing they have huge strides in terms of just making progress and making people understand why they're doing what they're doing. But this also has to extend to just like it has to trickle down to the very basic layers of being able to see it in like schools, being able to see it in, coffee shops, being able to see it in supermarkets, things like that, where people, well, it's not just like high profile NASA engineers and scientists and astronauts. It's common people like you and me that can just, that we see these like either flyers or we see these in our social media. We see this on a regular basis and we're able to, have conversations about it and have these kind of resources more open and more available. And I'm sure people would prefer to have a conversation with a person rather than get their information through a website. And so it's like having more informed individuals to talk about these missions to people readily, like these kind of people should be readily available. And it's not that we place these people, it's that we have people in place and we just educate them better so they can educate others better. So this includes teachers and like, school administrators. This includes people who have a high impact just within, societies that they don't even have to extend to just major politicians, but it's like, the town mayor, for example, having people who are already in place in these systems and have the power to communicate to crowds like this, to me, is being able to using that as our I guess our mouthpiece to be able to communicate what NASA is trying to say to these people. And it's effective communication, because would you rather listen to this big government entity or would you listen to your like high school teacher, So to me, I think that is an effective way of keeping that vision board in people's view. And it's not that, like, again, not trying to shove it down their throats, but rather just like, hey, this is what we're really trying to say. This is what we're really trying to do. And, to me, I think that is an effective way we can keep that vision board for people. Yeah.
And talking about that vision, whenever you think about the future, say like 200 years out, what does society look like to you? I mean, and I guess specifically, are we still on the Earth making these little like weekend trips to like the moon and stuff, or have we really successfully branched out beyond the Earth?
I think, well, to be very honest, I believe that the Artemis missions are going to be very successful. And 200 years out, I do believe that there will still be people on the Earth, but not as much as we have them now. Like, I believe that people will take up space travel and we will have people on the moon and potentially even on Mars. And so we will probably be, somewhere between the three destinations. And I don't really know what the demographic distribution is going to look like, because it really depends. Like, you ask people now and they'll probably say, no, I will not leave the Earth, because, these missions are just starting out. And maybe 50 years down the line, and these missions are very successful, people might change their mind and say, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And we also have to think about, Earth's health, Earth's being able to perceive if we can still live on this planet, or if it will be too far past that point of, sustainable living on Earth. So there's a lot of factors that could play into it. There's a lot of climate change and combating the climate crisis that could really alter how we view living on this planet. And yeah, depending on that view, I think people will either choose to stay or leave. But yeah, in my understanding, there will definitely be people on the moon and on Mars and, successfully habitating those two bodies.
Um, I always wondered about that. Regardless of how we mess up the Earth, I still feel like it'd be a lot more friendly to human life than any other place in the solar system. Like, I mean, Venus is horrible, and Mars is extremely cold and thin atmosphere. So,
Yeah.
you would have to have some type of facility to live in both places. Wouldn't we just create that facility here on Earth if it got too bad?
I agree. I do. I don't believe that Earth is completely past that point. And I still think that it's still in our hands to be able to not completely reverse climate change, but at least take some steps to make continue sustaining life here. And you're right, even if things take a turn for the worst, Earth will still be, to our knowledge, the best place to be alive. But this is also another reason why space exploration is so important, because there's already been other celestial bodies identified that could potentially sustain, they're Earth-like and could potentially sustain human life. And so the more we explore, the more we understand these kind of bodies, and kind of figure out how we could get there. If, that is an option, I think that, we have another shot at having 2.0, like Earth 2.0 or something. So that is also, to me, that is how I would view it. Yeah.
Now, those places are light years away, and using technologies that we know about today, that may take hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of years for humanity to get to. Essentially do you envision people just in suspended hibernation and then they wake up thousands of years later? Or do you see generation ships, or do you see some type of big transformation in our understanding on how to transport people around the galaxy? How do you kind of envision us reaching these worlds?
Or there was that movie, I am blanking out on the name, but there was
Passenger, maybe?
I am not quite sure. So it was the one with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. I think that was the one. I cannot remember the name.
Yeah,
but
where he wakes up in the middle of the voyage and then wakes her
yes.
up.
Yeah, that was
I haven't actually seen it, but I've seen the preview, and I didn't talk to enough people about it that I think I know what happened.
So yeah, to me, I think that movie is an accurate representation of what I believe we can do if we harness an energy source that can sustain that flight and that voyage. But yeah, that movie to me, I thoroughly enjoyed that movie because I was like, wow, this is somewhere futuristic and, somewhere out there, this may happen, but it sounds incredible. However, yeah, realistically thinking about it, unless we actually find an energy source that can propel us and take that whole journey, maybe, back and forth, we would have to, unless we can do that, that would still be a dream. So yeah, although it sounds incredible that we have found something like this out there in a far, far away galaxy, realistically think about it, it sounds impossible unless we find this energy source. So yeah.
And it might be on the moon. We go there and we're like, oh, we can do it.
Fingers crossed. I really hope so.
If you could, would you take a trip to space?
Absolutely.
How far would you go? Would you orbit the Earth, go to the moon? Would you immigrate to Mars if we start settling there?
Well, I think I would definitely go to the moon. I have no second thought about it. I just know that if I was ever called, to be that, well, that is also a dream of mine, to be able to be an astronaut. and be, deployed on a mission to go to the moon. And so to me, that is already a dream I have and I want to do. However, if I do get the opportunity to go to Mars, I will not turn it down. And to me, it is the same. I'm going with the same intent, which is to be able to, well, it is a sacrifice in a way because we're still understanding human habitation on Mars and the moon. So even if I was deployed to Mars or to the moon, to me, the intent is to still, be able to understand how to live there and help people back on Earth who are still trying to gauge how to do that. So yeah, that to me, that is that is a goal of mine. So it's, yeah, in a heartbeat, I would say yes.
What's your confidence level that you'll get a chance to go in space in your lifetime?
Well, I do have a path that I've charted out to be able to achieve that. So right now, as a 20-year-old, I would say my confidence level is 100. And my hope is that it will stay 100 with all the challenges that are going to come in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. And well, Sindhu, I really appreciate your time this morning. I know it's a lot longer than maybe you had anticipated, but I really enjoyed kind of exploring all these topics with you. Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
No, I would just like to appreciate your mission to be able to talk to people about this and just being able to, gauge several people's perspective and put them together on one platform. It's an incredible resource. And I think it is because, you're not just interviewing like high profile people, you're interviewing like, normal daily, like people you come across in like coffee shops. It makes it so much more relatable, and it's incredible just seeing the work that you put up on your website. So thank you for doing all of this, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
I really appreciate that, and I'm glad you see some value in it. It's been a lot of fun and a big a growth for me, and I've enjoyed talking to you and all the other people that I've gotten to talk to, and sometimes I wonder if other people find value in it. So it's nice to hear that.
Well, thank you so much, Nathan. I enjoyed talking to you, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Okay, bye bye.
Bye bye.